Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team, and this week, a special guest. Joining me is Ramon.
Hey guys.
And once again, we have on the show for, I don't know, we're probably getting it to the 10th time, Trey.
Yo, what's going on? What's up?
If this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast, this is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Cav and I take a casual approach to the hobby, so on this podcast, we like to talk about the games that we run, the games that we play, and the cool, wonderful people we get to experience the hobby with, and sometimes we do interviews as well, so those are super cool. We do get a chance to interview people from the community. It's awesome. And if this is your first time hearing about tabletop RPGs, hey, friend, you're missing out. Go play it. Go find a table, go find some friends, and go have some fun. And if you are a player in someone's table, or at someone's table, not inside someone's table, that's weird, at someone's table, maybe it's your turn to run a game for your friends. It's super fun.
Very true. So this week, we are going to get to talking about something exciting. Mechanized Body, a game that is recently, well, you've had some playtests going on, but you've all recently released a playtest adventure that people can hop in on over on Itch.io, which we will have links to below. So y'all can go check out this new mech game. That's the plan for this episode. We're gonna hop into it. Really excited again just to have Trey on again. I think if you're on like maybe 3 more times, you get like free parking or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the parking tickets are racked up.
But before we get into the episode, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week.
Yes, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week, brought to you by Trey, our guest. Thanks, Trey.
Yes. So, was thinking this is relevant to Mechanized Body, and in the times that we've been playing, me and Ramon, there's a player on Ukua Station, and every time when they heard about Mechanized Body, it was like, oh, it's a card-based TTRPG. And they started playing, they're like, oh, Exodia from fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think the tip of the week is to listen to your players. Now, we didn't add Exodia, but it definitely generated some like crazy cool ideas. Like, yeah, like we can do anything we want to do. And if we wanted to add in something as complex as building the head, body, feet, and arms and chains of Exodia, we could do that. And so I think it kind of helped me unlock my brain a little bit. I don't know if it's the same for you, Ramon, but this changed my thinking a little bit.
Well, yeah, definitely. I was never planning on putting an Exodia idea or like card together, but just the versatility of like this is actually also a card game made the design process pretty cool. And I do respect listening to your players, because like your brain you're like one person versus like 4 people. Like they're smart too, they have good ideas. Listen to them, like add them in. They'll think it's even cool even if it's like inspired by what they're putting out. It's always the fun to add other people's ideas in and collaborate. So, yeah,
collaboration is like, I was just talking at work with some people, and I was talking to how like I collaborate and how they collaborate. And I'm like, man, like collaboration is like so fucking important. It's you can get into a stage where you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do, and you just kind of head down that path. But you open up your ears, like listen to other ideas and help find the answer. That's when you find the secret sauce, juice, whatever you call it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for tabletop games, it's beneficial for the players too, because honestly, in the long run, like that helps make it easier for players to hop on the other side of the screen, which is something we always support here. Just by giving them that taste of adding like more and more pieces to the game itself, whether it's like a character or part of the setting. Just seeing that it's not as complicated as it might seem when you haven't done it yet.
100%. And I mean, that's all of what you guys are about. Ramon says it every week.
Yes. I don't if unless everyone skips the intro, which I mean, all right, fair enough. You can do whatever you want. It is slightly different every single time, because I never repeat it. Like I don't write anything down. This is all straight off of my brain every single week. So I flub up a lot. So I feel like it makes the show more authentic.
Oh yeah,
this podcast is like 90% instinctual.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go, folks. There's your tip of the week. Listen to your players; they got good ideas too. And if you are designing stuff, listen to the feedback from your playtesters too, because they also have good ideas.
All right, let's hop into talking about Mechanized Body. a card-based tabletop role-playing game, which is very interesting to me because I have not seen very many card-based tabletop games. It's usually dice-based for me. Different types of dice systems, D20s, D6s, whatever. But a card-based game is kind of a new thing for me, so I kind of just want to hop right in to what is this game, and maybe the outline of how it works, because I do also want to talk setting as well.
Yeah. Ramon, do you want to jump in or?
Okay, so you go first with the setting, and then I'll talk about the little bit of the design. How about that?
Okay. Yeah.
The setting's cool, so I want that to be the highlight for now.
Okay, cool. All right, so like most mech games, it's pilot, you hop in a mech, and things are conveyed, whether it's violence, whether it's change, whether it's the nuances of how you build your mech, or MB as we call it in this game. That's kind of the core concepts of the game, is a pilot mechs to do things. Now, I think that's with like most mech games, that's how it plays out. And then when you think about like other themes that are kind of in the setting and in the genre of mech games, it's like usually politics and big epic moments and destruction and tinkering. All that's kind of like factored into the game in different ways. So I wouldn't say it's anything unique there. Where the uniqueness, I think, comes to the game is the nuances of the setting. I think it's pretty grim dark. I try to follow like Front Mission, if anyone's ever played that game. Came out in, like, I think the 90s or whatever. Like, I don't think the first one ever came out in America, but the second and third did. And it's a deep kind of like tactical game that focuses on real life stories or history. Like Front Mission's based in like the Philippines or whatever during like the extents of the Vietnam War and what happened there. And I just really liked the way that game highlighted the people piloting mechs and how they can affect the change, and how that alludes back to like real life, and how like lives are changed, situations are changed, themes are set, stories are driven by the actions characters take in their mech. And I think that pretty much is the center of Mechanized Body. And then when we think more about like the story itself, humanity pretty much has like existed in the system. So this is like our current system, from Pluto all the way to fucking the sun, like that's where humanity is. And then I think in somewhere during the beginning of the book, I kind of give a breakdown of like what like is that kind of overarching setting. And it's like, so there was this big giant like filter of I call it the first humanic filter, and it's like 60% of humanity died. Like 30 billion people died across the system because of just mass war, just war that never stopped, kept on going. War on different colonies, war on Earth, war of different corporations, war of different nations. All that pretty much led to the decimation of a lot of humanity. And then in the midst of this giant war, there's this organization called the Pluto Titan Foundation, who found like a monument or a mausoleum on Pluto. And it was records of other civilizations, other species who had encountered the same thing. And for whatever reason, whether it's isolation or whatever, one single soul have found this monument on Pluto and decided to describe or inscribe on this like monument a record of their folly. And at the end of the message, it always was like, achieve unity or die. And then over the millions and millions of years, just more people, for whatever reason, found themselves on Pluto inscribing the same thing. And it's really just kind of like a lesson for humanity when they found it during their first humanic filters. They're like, oh shit, all these uncountable civilizations had issues with achieving unity, so they died. And the way in which we're going to not die is hunker down and figure out our differences before we spread out across the galaxies and just pretty much recreate what the hell we're doing here and just fighting forever. And so this system is, or the setting is, people getting in mechs, trying to figure out how to find unity through violence.
Try to achieve unity through violence. I love it. Yeah. I would say the core, you has everything that you expect in the mech sci-fi genre, right? You got cool robots, you got politics, you got space battles and land battles and lasers and big guns going do 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 do, right? But it's the real core, I think, of the theming is like, yeah, you're right. Like you said, achieve unity or die, right? There's no other way except for together. And everybody who is not about that life is going to regret it, basically.
100%.
Yeah, which is super cool. I mean, I think that like it's basically, unfortunately, like the end of Gundam every single time. Right?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. I mean, heavy influences from like other mech genres like Gundam and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so super flavorful, and again, everything drips with, I would say, Trey, you have a very good, I guess, authorial voice, so everything drips with style, and I think every time you describe something, it's always just like, in some sort of poetry, dog, like it's for real, so. Like, I'm out here just reading stuff, you're like describing like a mech, and I'm like, is this a mech or is this my life right now? Like, did I just learn something like about myself? So yeah, the book's super cool. Okay. Yeah. So okay, let's go to the mechanics, because yeah, you're right, Calvin. There's not a lot of card-based TTRPGs out there.
Yeah, I, off the top of my head, can't think of one. I'm sure people in the comments below can, insert their own examples, but I don't believe I have played one. Actually, I think, I want to say Street Fighter or something like that was card-based, but I wasn't playing that one.
Street Fighter? Like,
no, was it Street Fighter? I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering. I've seen a stream of a game that was card-based, but I don't think I've played one.
I feel like the closest one that I keep going to, and Ramon knows this, it's like Gloomhaven is the one that I just keep going to, but that's like in a box type scenario, where it's like predictable with like the story and stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's a board game essentially, right? Like all, I guess, tabletop RPGs, they're tabletop games, right? So it's either like you can make your own story, or you basically just comes with its own story. But pilots are cool, and they have decks. There is dice rolling, so there is like a 2d6 basically system, but essentially you have your own decks, you play cards, the cards kind of supercharge your actions that you take, and the GM also has a deck of cards, and every NPC has their own cards they can select from, and when you play them, it's like you get to basically just like supercharge your actions, where like you move twice, attack twice, give a cool, super awesome laser overcharge. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to call out, Shaka, but essentially that's how the game kind of goes. And I guess the real kind of cool thing about it is, because there are giant mechs in the future, we decided to make it so that you're probably gonna hit. So you hit on a d6 on a 3, 4, 5, and then you get a direct hit on a 6. So you're more likely to get like a glance, and the 6 result is a critical hit or a direct hit.
Yep. I mean, on the pack, so like Ramon came up with this idea. We were like talking back and forth, and like, man, how do we like make these more like intuitive and accessible? And he's like, well, why don't we just put all the fucking cards in a pack, and then kind of like narratively and mechanically tie them together. So instead of like, with a regular deck of like a card game, you're like selecting individual cards built into your deck. I feel like with the complexity of a TTRPG, you need something that's a little more like predictable and intuitive. And so we started including cards and packs that you get access to by your skill investments. And they kind of provide that sauce that, Ramon was alluding to, where you get to do like a supercharged cool thing by playing like one card that flows into another card that meshes with your mech's equipped systems or weapons or whatever.
Yeah, so the idea would be to like group the cards into like training packs. Like you have like basic training pack, like basic combat training, and then you get cool specialized stuff like, I don't know, like the comic guard pack, where you get to do cool comic guard shit. But as you level up and unlock more skills, it gives you access to more packs, which means cooler cards, and you could buy more copies of cards. So really, as you level up as a player, you get to invest more into your deck, and you get to make basically cooler and longer combos. So I guess it would be like borrowing from Lancer, would be like the talents, where talents are like grouped together, and you can invest more into that talent, and you get more abilities out of it. But all of our abilities are basically in cards, right? So you won't have access to all of them all the way, but it's up to you how you want to design your deck, how you want to design your pilot. The core thing is like the deck is the pilot, and it works synergistically with the mech, which is kind of, I guess, the paper and pen portion of your character sheet.
Yeah, and then like the basic, so every character has like basic action. So these are like your things that aren't anything new to like TTRPGs. Like you can move, you can attack, you can. We have like 2 specific ones where you get to reduce your stress and you get to remove tokens, which are like essentially status effects or whatever. But they're like pretty basic and they're pretty limited because you only get 2 actions. And so having the cards and having cards in packs that mesh with each other all kind of like meld together to make the most out of those 2 actions. So it's optimal for you to play cards rather than like use those standard actions, because you're going to get way more out of them, and you're going to not have necessarily have longer turns, but have more impactful turns.
Okay, but those basic actions exist. Well, I guess I wanted to ask, like, how do the cards work? Because my brain immediately is like, oh, you have a basic thing to do if you don't have the cards you want in your hand, but I actually don't know if that is entirely how the situation works, because it sounds like as you level up, you gain access to more packs of cards, which I think is an interesting system, because, that just works like how normal trading card games work.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you gain these packs of cards, you put these cards into, I guess, your deck, and then from there, you, so what do you do in play? Like, you have to use all the cards you've unlocked in your deck? Can you put some aside? Like, how does the deck itself work? And how is it, as you said, like, how is it the pilot versus the mech itself, which I guess is the tabletop stuff, or the paper, or on the paper?
Yeah. I'll highlight a pack that Ramon pretty much made. It's like it's combat pack 3, so you need investment and combat skill up to 3. It's called Tempest Technique of the Renaissance, and I kind of like the flavor text, so I'm gonna read it real quick. It's like, storms often tear across the mesosphere of Venus, the Renaissance's home. They carry the names Mephisto, Mithras, and Isis. These tempests are feared and revered alike, and many study them, worship them, strive to become like them. Lives dedicated to the unattainable, seeking to strike with a force as unrelenting as the storms they idolize. And in this pack are Crimson Tempest, Emerald Tempest, Azure Tempest, and Gold Tempest. And each of these cards tie into one of each other. So you can use like Crimson Tempest to make a melee attack. And if after it resolves, you can burn out that card or burn out another card to get another Tempest from your deck. It's like searching your deck and looking for like Emerald Tempest to use that card and play it. So that's the interplay between the cards in your deck. It's like you're really trying to make sure that you can get the right card at the right time. Very similar to like any kind of C card game or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just making sure that, those packs that you select are binded by other cards and other packs that are similar, that let you kind of do what you need to do.
Yeah, that description is pretty dope. Like, I didn't even realize. I just make the numbers work sometimes, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
It's really cool. Yeah, I mean, like, and then there's and also in each of the packs, like, there's up to 2 weapons included as well, or weapons or utilities. So there's only 2 classifications of gear. It's either a weapon, it's like a melee or range weapon. Then there's utility, which can be anything from like a shield, a spear. A shield, armor, a sensor thingy. But they're included in the pack as well, and they also play into the cards you get. So you can use the Valkyria greatsword to like also work with the Azure Tempest or Emerald Tempest in your deck.
Yeah. So basically, like, every single pack, it comes equipped with like a weapon or a system that will just straight up benefit from the cards. So the synergy is already built in, like Trey said. You have to pick the packs that you think will work together, or you have an idea, and then have the selection of loadout equipped to your mech to make it cool and functional and super badass, like you should always do. But actually, speaking about the mechs, maybe we should talk about those guys.
Yeah. We do like the mechs. There's 15 mechs in the game, and each mech has like stuff that folks are pretty familiar with when it comes to mech games. Like, there's a specific HP. Each mech has like specific sensors. Each mech can equip a number of like weapons or utility slots. So The Abutho, like my favorite mech, can equip 2 weapons and 1 utility at base without any other investments. And that kind of like centers it for being like a attacking mech with some type of utility that helps them attack more. In this circumstance, you could go to a combat pack, like I can't remember which one it is. I think it's mobility pack, and equip like thrusters, which allow you to like attack faster and attack characters at longer distances by like overboosting over to them. But yeah, the Abutho is like a mech where it has an integrated system. So all mechs have integrated systems that allow it to do its thing more frequently. And then additionally, each mech has access to I can't remember what we're calling. I think it's like a perk card or whatever. It's like an own special card that you can only get from working with that, using that mech, that you can increase its number to from 1 to 3 or from 0 to 3. So you can just exclude that mech card if you want to, or put, anywhere from 1, 2, 3 in there. But they're pretty powerful cards that also kind of work with the mechs, what it wants to do. So it's kind of like, since I have like Lancer Brain, it's kind of like core bonuses in Lancer, except they're not as strong and they still kind of represent the things your pilot would be capable of doing while piloting this mech. So it's like a talent specific for the mech.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's like this maneuver can only be taken because you're piloting at a B2, right? So
And you can have 0 to 3 in your deck. So then, I'm guessing then that if you were to fill up your deck with a bunch of these, that would give you less space for your other specific abilities. Then.
Yeah. There's 2 sources of cards that you don't get from packs, and they're class cards. So there's a will-based class, which is one of our skills, a grit-based class, another one of the skills, combat-based class, and then a grit-based class. And each of those classes have cards you can add to your deck as well at your will, depending on like what level you're at. You can add more of those class cards to your deck. And then there's your MB cards. So together you can have like a set of cards that just come with the mech if you choose to add them, or you could just forgo all those cards and then just add pack cards to your deck, which all come in like groups of 5. So it's like you start out with a minimum deck limit of 15. You can go all the way up to I think 35 as you level up.
mm-hmm. As like you play the game, there's tons of options to switch things out, change up your deck. You're not really locked in too hard into like one particular playstyle, or even like if a mission calls for you to be more mobile versus more defensive, like you still have that flexibility built in to the packs and all of your options. Actually, I think that's one of the coolest parts about the idea. Like, okay, so like in theory, right, like okay, we all come from playing Lancer, right? So in theory, right, Lancer says that you have all these options, and you can change them out to suit the mission. But I find rarely it ever happens that you change out stuff, and like you mostly just stick with what you're doing, even if it's to the detriment of whatever mission you're trying to do. But I really like the flexibility the cards offer, because it changes up the gameplay enough without, I guess it's like hard to be really rigid with just a bunch of cards, right? You could just switch everything out, and the deck will function okay. Yep.
And in practice, I've ran a number of games, and I've have like a group that I've been running a game with since like, I don't know, maybe November. And I think almost every session where we had like the end of mission, or I just let them switch around their cards or whatever, just because I wanted them to, they've switched around their cards. Like it either like all their cards changed, which also oftentimes meant their skill investment changed. But I think there's much more exploration of like what a mech can do, or rather what a pilot can do in this game, because it feels safe to switch out like a pack of cards, rather than like in another game where like if you feel like you're switching out your talent, you're switching out something super fundamental, whereas packs are just incremental ways in which you can improve your game.
Yeah, and like it depends on like the amount of which card you put into your deck as well, could really change the way that a card feels, right? So if you have a good reliable card, you got 3 of them, that's like your signature move, baby. You popping that thing off all the time. But if it's at 1, right, then it's more of like I'm gonna save this till it's real important to use, right? Like this is my big blowout card. So even that could just be like, I think that, I mean, I come from a background of card games. I played a lot of card games, right? And one of my favorite parts about having a deck is like player expression. Player expression is such a big deal in card games, and what you choose to put in and what you choose not to, like what artwork you choose, like all sorts of stuff can like lead into someone's deck being like a representation of like their cool ideas, right? So that's kind of like I think the really, really super unique part about Mechanized Body is that the pilot deck that you create could just be your own, right? Like you don't have to. It's super customizable. It's super much like this is my pilot and this is how cool he is.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Ramon, but like I remember when I played card games like as a kid, like whether it was Pokemon or like Dragon Ball Z or Digimon, like my deck of cards, I had such a rational attachment to this like deck of like 30 cards. I don't know why, I just like worshipped it because I knew what every little card was so intentional, and it just felt like a representation. I could see it. I could see every little card and like knew what I would draw, and like it was cool to see my strategic plans kind of come together when I had that one card and I played it. And I from running this game, I get the same sense from like the people I've played with, because I played a game yesterday and one of the players has like 3 scope ins, which comes from a combat pack 1. It's like Mason range combat training, and scope in lets you extend the range of your weapon by half when you play it. And it's a discard card, so it just goes right into your discard deck. And so when this person plays it, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking shoot way across the map through some rocks and take somebody out. And it's like, I feel them being so tied to that decision. That it's a decision they made long ago by building their deck. And it's a tactical decision they made in the moment at the right time, and it paid off. And I think it's like a double benefit.
Yeah. I also, to be fair, I guess I don't know, like being straight with like how people interact with TTRPGs these days. A lot of people also just get TTRPGs to theory crafts, like, and this game is begging to be theory crafts, man. Like, like the builds in this bitch that you could pull off are probably so cool. So I mean, people are way better at card games and tabletop RPG games than I could ever be. So I'm super excited to see people's like cool strategy. Check out this 5-card combo that we put together and just be like, yeah, this will kill anything. And we're like, wow, that's awesome. Like,
I so agree. So like that makes me think of, so a player did this to me the other day, and they have, I think it's the card pack is called Mason Decimator Training, and the description also is like very much who this player is, because they're like, I want to fucking decimate. And here's the description. It's like, when I step on the field, I see tunnels I bore with these blessings in my hands, hot, gleaming, sundering. I fornicate in my pride for the tunnels I bore. Decimation is my name. I build no bridges. I circumvent them with my blessings. And then there's 3 cards in here. There's Decimator, You Know My Name, and Boring Shot. And there's 2 weapons. One weapon is a energy rifle. There's 2 gear. There's one weapon is an energy rifle, and one is a external capacitor that lets your energy rifle do more damage, but it also can be blown up. And those cards just help you do a lot of damage and blow a lot of things up and bore holes in people. And it's like they put that together with scope in, with the gear in that pack, and ended up taking out like 2 or 3 of my NPCs just because they rolled really well. And it's like, fuck, like that's great job for you, but like, no, my NPCs.
but like it's cool that the cards allow you to live the fantasy, and that's like the important part, right? Like it's that the players, and I guess those NPCs have to die anyway, man. They weren't good people if they were on the other side of some Mason.
Yeah.
Listen, man, it's Unity or bust. This is some serious times, dog. Like, we ain't got time for this.
That is true. You know, NPCs are meant to be blown up. That's very true.
Actually, like, speaking of NPCs, maybe we should like talk a little bit about the GM side and what we got cooking for them.
Yeah. So, let me see. I think there's 30 NPCs in the game. I think maybe a little bit less than that. And they're pretty plug and play. There isn't a lot of customization necessarily with the NPCs other than the exchanging of a pilot skill. So this is kind of like it's Ramon's idea. I'm pretty sure that's your idea, Ramon, right? The pilot skill stuff. Yeah. But it's also like in front mission, like all the pilots have skills in front mission that you can level up, and they do different cool things. But NPCs in this circumstance have pilot skills. So like one of our like NPCs, the first one on the list, Line LV MB. Once per round, their melee attacks get an extra D to hit, so they can roll 3d6, keep highest instead of 2d6. This allows them to get that direct hit easier. And so NPCs have anywhere from 3 to 4 weapons / utility, and then they have 3 cards that they add to a NPC deck called the tactical deck. And when you add a bunch of NPCs to an Op4, say you add 5 NPCs, they're all adding 3 different cards to that tactical deck. And any NPC can play any card, but if the card isn't from that NPC, they take 1 stress. And stress is like a bad thing, because if you go over your stress cap, you come over stress, and then you lose an action. So NPCs, the diversity of like how NPCs play comes from them being able to use any other card from any other NPC. So like the Lion LV can go over and use the Sapper MB's card if the GM has it or the game operator has it in their hand, which lets them use Shutdown Command. It's a maneuver. You have to play a card, and they have to make the player do a systems check and look at the top card of the deck. And if it's a systems card, if it isn't a systems card, they can't make any attacks. So it's kind of like that's where the fluidity and flexibility and diversity of like NPC encounters kind of flow. And I think from my experience, each NPC never really feels the same in a combat, because you never know what crazy shit they're gonna do that they get from another NPC.
Yeah, because that's where the synergy for the GM comes from. Instead of it being like different packs centralized into this cool, awesome one dude, it's like a team of assholes working in coordination to fuck up your day. Like, yeah. So for the GM side, at least for tactical gameplay, it's the fun of building a team and like having the cool mashups of abilities based on like the different cards that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the surprise the players have when you play a card that was meant for one NPC on another, and realizing like, oh no, this is actually worse.
Oh no. Yeah, I think the other day there's one NPC. It's called a Sky Scream. Every time I say it, I think Star Scream, but it's called a Sky Scream, and they don't have like a large missile or anything. And then there's this player standing next to another player. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this other NPC, the Derby NPC, and use its chassis missile. It's like Cybok from Mortal Kombat. And they just like shoot a giant missile out of their chest. And the player was like, oh, fuck. Like, shit. Like, I'm going to die.
Yeah. So cool, fun stuff for sure. And as far as like, I guess I know that we also are putting together like there's a mission, like a playtest mission that also is releasing with the game. As far as like mission construction, my favorite part about actually the whole part of the GM, it's just one table. So like there's like this big D20 rollable table where you can it generates you the conflict, the environment, the complication, and the hostiles. And my God, Trey, this table is everything right now. Like, I was just like, I saw it and I was like, wow, you sure solved all of my problems in, this simple table. I was like,
we actually used this table on the podcast when we were building that Lancer encounter for you, and it was like the cultists or whatever.
Yeah, I was about to say, this table looked very familiar.
Yeah,
no.
it's revamped. It's revamped because but it's the same table with different stuff in there. But
I probably had the same reaction. Like...
Definitely different items, but I do recall some of these columns.
Yo, this is so good. I mean, I don't know. I'm a big fan of tables these days. I don't know what. Give me a good table, and I'll bend the whole world to my whim. Like,
yeah, I'm the same way, man. I'm like, I think I don't know about you, Ramon, but I've kind of gotten in a lull of like not being so creative and just looking. I need something to help me out. I don't necessarily want the tax of running a pre-made adventure, but I just need a way to like help me generate ideas so I can just go, because I trust my ability to go, but I just need somewhere to start. And I was like thinking like, man, like this table would be something like this would be super helpful. I could, we could roll and be like, all right, you got a 3, you have the conflicts in expanding empire, and you got another 3, and it's in a jungle, and you got a 2, and there's a comms wipeout, and then you got a 1, and it's like mercenaries are there. They're the hostiles. It's like, fuck, I can improvise a story around that.
Yeah, like actually, like I just, man, like that's really what you need, right? Like I am in a funk for sure on like what to do sometimes, and sometimes I just need like a really cool idea with a little bit of conflict and just something I could bounce off the players, and then I could roll with it for a while, right?
And I think this ties back into our tip of the week, in that you're starting off with this base and you're throwing something at the players, but the players, because there's more of them at the other side of the table, when they start throwing stuff back at you, you can start adding that into your story as you go, even if it's something that you're improvising on the spot. If someone comes up with an idea, has a suggestion, just you have more of that space there if you are starting from a much less rigid space, instead of having like everything planned out to work in a specific way or play out in a specific way. Having the room of just starting with this table and then building from there. Yeah, again, that just gives players more space to help out the GM. Just anything to help the GM relax a bit.
Yeah, and I feel like too, like you could probably like at the start of it. So there's a progression of the mission in it, and it goes from like uptime where you're looking for a mission, briefing when you've chosen a mission, deployment where you do the mission, combat when you're on deployment but in a combat. There's after combat, and there's debriefing and downtime. But like during uptime, you could just ask your players like, "Hey, we're looking for another mission. Everyone roll a d20." And then, or each person roll 4 d20s, and then narrate why you want to go on this mission. Like it's another way in which you can listen to your players. And I think that goes well with how Ramon and I have designed the NPCs too, because NPCs aren't complicated. The tactical decisions you make with the NPCs are pretty complicated, but like putting together an op 4 is pretty simple. It's like you just pick the NPC you want, pick the one that fits the setting, and you pop them in there. So it's easy to like respond to those prompts or whatever that the players choose using a table like this, and then just putting together combat for them.
Yeah. I don't know what to add with that. You did a good job. I was like, yes. Everything what Trey said, plus more.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, and we didn't say this in the beginning, but like, dear fucking God, working with someone is so helpful. It's like, man, like doing this stuff by yourself it's hard. And I strain to think how someone has continued momentum to finish things, or even like a critical eye to say like, hey dude, this doesn't make fucking sense. Like it's so helpful to Ramon. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way, but like it's helpful to have that back and forth, because I don't think I wouldn't have finished this by my own. Like I wouldn't have like got to a beta. It's not finished, but like, I wouldn't have got to like a beta state by my own.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I agree, like the amount of brain noodling you have to do to put something like this together, it's a lot for one person. Like any independent designer, I'm like, kudos to you, because like you died. You died for what you loved. Like you died alone. Like
yeah. Oh my God, yeah. That is so true. It's hard. It's very hard. But yeah, having a helpful critical mind who critical thinks with you it's invaluable.
For sure. And like honestly, like I think there's strengths and weaknesses to everybody, and it takes a village to make something cool, right? Like
yep.
I would say also the added complication of making a card-based tabletop RPG game, which when Trey like posted, I think it was on Twitter or whatever, and you're like, I'm working on this, and I was like, sign me up. And then
oh my God, we went through some bad versions of my design. I will definitely. They just didn't work. They were like, they were like, I think I had one version where I was like, yeah, everything is in the deck, and then even your life bar is represented by the deck. And I remember reading somewhere, like, I don't know, months later, that like, I forget what it's called, but it was like a thing that shows up in card-based games where the folly is making your deck, which you draw cards in, where the game is really cool, also your life bar. It just makes it so counterproductive to like even having any fun, because losing damage and losing the card that you wanted to play that you strategically put in your deck sucks really bad. And that was one of the versions that I made earlier. And Ramon was like, "Nah, bro, this ain't it."
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like it's funny too because you follow, like, honestly, there's like deck building, card games, and stuff like that. There's like a whole slew of traps you have to avoid versus making like a TTRPG, right? Like it's like there's like, because of the clashing of genres, there's just like the holes multiply. Like
no, for real.
Yeah. So because like too, you got to think about it as well. I guess we're in design hat mode. If you think about the way that games are fun, it's because of the randomness, right? It's the decision that you make before you roll the dice and what you do after you roll the dice, right? Like that's the outcome, right? So if you have something that's too random on the dice roll and you have randomness in the deck, like it's too much and it gets like basically all down to luck. But I think with the direct glancing system, so like with the dice, there is still a chance to miss, but it's like it's more heavily, like way more heavily weighted that you're gonna hit, and which means the randomness gets shifted from the dice really to the cards, and you get a little sweet little bonus when a direct hit happens, which is also super cool. So that was like a big turning point when we figured that out. That was like
totally. And it feels, I don't know why, I haven't looked, maybe you have, but I haven't looked at the percentages, but I feel like direct hits happen so much when I play, and it's only on a 6. But because we're on 2d6, that's why. But like ones and twos, like rarely, like there's maybe like 1 or 2 misses a session. But like direct hits are like a lot.
Yeah, well, that's good because, like, I don't know, the players and everybody needs to feel cool, right? So honestly, like, missing sucks overall. You always should have a chance to fail, but it should be more of like a, oh my god, I missed.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah, versus oh my god, I hit, right? Like that's you want the oh my god, I missed to be the thing.
You want it to feel like, oh yeah, I should have missed. Like I hit. Like you want to feel realistic. Like, oh, this game's not realistic if I don't miss. Like that's what you want to like. And that's what it is. Like it's like, fuck. Well, yeah, okay. I guess I would have missed at least one attack out of the 8 or 9 I did.
Yeah, and I like to position in my, I guess, headcanon as the designer is that like you're piloting advanced pieces of weaponry. Like, what are you missing for? Like,
they're gonna find it.
Yeah, you are the ace pilot of a secret organization. Why are you missing, dog? Like,
oh my god, that is so true. I mean,
bro,
what was that one thing we did? I posted, Ramon. It was a screen cap from Witch from Mercury, and it was like I was like, literally, this is our game. It's like glancing hit, and then it was like direct hit, and the guy was like, it just felt like that anime. If it made me think about this game, like, damn, this game kind of feels like an anime, you know? Like you feel badass. The NPCs kind of feel tough until you really lock in, get that card you want, play that card, and they're obliterated.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's the feeling. If you're like running a game of that, like I think that's the coolest part about it is when your players get to be basically Gundam heroes, right? That's what your players are playing as. And honestly, it's brutal on both sides, to be fair. Like yeah, it's just slightly I would say tipped towards the player side, but there is still opportunity for the GM to really put on the hurt, especially with some of the cool like boss type characters too as well, right? Like those crazy like the boss characters remind me of Armored Core when you fight all those random giant, I don't even know what, they're not mechs anymore. They're just buildings. Like they're just automated buildings. Like what the heck?
Like when did something get so big that it's no longer a mech, it's just like a fucking metal monster?
Yo, because like it's like, you know, the mechs in Armored Core are basically like 3 fighter jets like stacked on top of each other, right? Like, they're pretty big. And then it's like, but this thing is way bigger than you. And you're like, what? Why?
Yeah. And then, I feel like, so there's like a couple, let me see, there's 3 kind of like bigger, they're like mid-tier bosses, or actually in the current version of the game, they are the big bosses. There's a battle fort, there's a swarm fort, and there's a storm fort. And they're all a part of this like fort thing that's in the narrative. And they're just giant machines of death and destruction. and they have this pilot skill that's like Big Boss. This NPC has 2 actions per turn, and the first attack they make in a round has an extra D, so they roll in 3d6 to make an attack. And they have more stress. Their weapons are more powerful. They have more systems available to them, and they're just kind of and way more HP than your average NPC. Like the average NPC maybe has like 12 HP or something, like, but these have like 30 or 25 or whatever. And so like they're pretty tough to fight. They're not like single bosses. Like they still need probably like a little support, but they're imposing as well.
Yeah, a real big boss threat. Shout outs to Metal Gear.
Shout outs. Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, same thing too for we were talking about their pilot cards. Their pilot cards can be used by other NPCs. So like if you want to, you can use this little wimpy NPC, the goon NPC can use Burning Fear. And as an action, they can choose 3 characters and sensors with burn, and they automatically fill their burn checks at the start of their turn. So they could have a lot of burn tokens and then just burn up.
Yeah, because they're working together as a team.
They're working together.
Cohesion. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. This game's just fun, man. Like, I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's fun.
Yeah, I remember that one time, Ramon, we were playing, and I think we were playing like round robin or whatever. So it's like kind of GM-less where we set up 2 NPCs, and I was like, I think it was like my first time playing when the new version where we incorporated your PAX idea and all that stuff. And I was like, damn, this game's fun. This game's fun. This is really fun. And I was like, I was surprised. I don't know why I was surprised, but I had only been GMing, so I didn't really know what the player side was like.
Yeah, it turns out they were having a blast. Like,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a beta. We're definitely like not done with it, but where it's at now, I feel like pretty. I don't know how you feel, Ron, but I feel pretty good about how it plays and the narrative that backs it up.
Yeah. I think that it's coming together real nice, and it is. I don't think it's really that complex of a game, other than the fact that you also have to just build a deck. But I think the deck size is more. It's more like, I would say, think of it less like complicated deck and more like you're having a window of actions to choose from. So you're not just doing the same thing over and over again. Again, not to rip on like other tabletop RPGs, but a lot of times you're actually just doing the same thing over and over again, unless you have some sort of resource that you're burning, like spell slots or whatever, right? So your like decisions round to round don't really change too much. But the Mechanized Body, like, you're gonna run out of cards. You have to be strategic. You're gonna have to you build your deck so you know what your game plan is, and that's just like for one fight. If you exhaust cards, if you burn out cards, you're not gonna be able to use those cool maneuvers for later fights. So you really have to think of like, is this the time to bust out the cool super move or not, right? Like, maybe you only have one, and then it's like, well, what was you gonna do, right?
And I find that from like when I play with folks is like everyone plays so differently. Like it just seems fairly different from player to player. Like they may have the same weapons equipped or the same systems equipped, but their cards are fairly different, and it's just how they go about solving problems as in killing the NPCs. It all changes. Like it's pretty different. Now there's some circumstances too where, like, Ramon, you were telling me that I think it's the Michigan MB. It's made by, I think, the Neutral Blocks Alliance. It had a way too strong integrated system where they went last. If they went last in the round, they would just automatically direct hit on a 4+, and it was way too strong. And that player just kept on doing the same thing. Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Sometimes that was mistakes. I was like, no, you don't have this play.
Yeah, that was a super big mistake. Oh my gosh. Yeah, do you want to crit 50% of the time, which is basically every single time? Like,
sure, I'll go last.
Yeah, bro, we should have made it harder. We should have made it be like, and you lose half your life, and you explode. Like, it's like
there's that one NPC, one MB.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering how it would feel in play, like, because like you guys were just saying, you can't just repeatedly do the same action. Like, I've definitely been in game situations where it's like I might as well do the same spell over and over again, do the same action over and over again. So I was kind of wondering how it would feel in play, and I guess it's still a good play experience for people who, you know, they can't just do the same thing over and over again, even if it's the thing they like to do or their signature move. They have a limited amount of it in a way, and they can't even guarantee that they will have it on hand, I guess, because they are randomly drawing a card.
Mm-hmm. But you could, because there's cards that search other cards, or you could have multiples of that card. So, you know, it's more likely for you to draw it. You can have draw cards. So it's like there's ways definitely for you to get the card that you need, but you still have to be intentional about it, right? Yeah. I think it's like the intentionality is the cool part. You're mixing like some support cards to make your deck run better, as well as like the cool, awesome, like flashy, like I murder a dude card. So then it's like, you know, building the synergy is the cool part about putting the stuff together, the packs and everything.
Yeah, and I think the way that card games work, and I think how we've built this game is like, yeah, you have a signature move, but you also have signature moves. Like, and a signature move feels more signature when there's a risk of not getting it, or a risk of situations not lining up to where you can use the giant Kamehameha wave. And you got to be beat up, your shirt's got to be ripped, you got to have a couple scars on you, and then you're like, and you do your thing. But I think it's similar in this game, you know, like you have to have the right situation, and it feels good to do that
for sure. And it's like, okay, like I don't know, straight up like Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds when they have the flash of like I figured out how to beat your ass, and all the cards flash across the screen and they synchro summon. It's like that plus like you're in Gundam Seed and like you activate your coordinator powers at the same time. It's like that is actually what's happening.
Seriously.
The whole plan's coming together, right? Like
that is that's I mean that's literally it. Yeah.
Yeah, then you could scream, "There's no trash cards in my grandpa's deck," like whatever Yuki says. Like,
there's no trash cards in my grandpa's mech.
Yeah.
Now there also is like, you know, I think, and Ramon, let me know if you agree with this. I think if the game was, all right, I'm gonna strategically build my deck, and when I get in combat, I'm gonna tactically make choices to get my signature card so I can just win. If it was that all the time without any NPCs that affect your hand, that would be pretty boring, I feel like, you know? Like, I feel like, so there are NPCs, like I talked about, and there's a Sky Scream NPC that can give you stress, and your stress cap can go up to like, I don't know, anywhere from like 5, 6 or whatever, 5 to 7, I don't know. But it gives you stress, and it can take an action to make you discard as many cards as you have equal to your stress. So it's like, fuck, like, you know, and it kind of feels bad a little bit because if you just get that real good card you want, but then you have to discard all your cards because your stress is high. But that's why we also have cards that let you mitigate your stress, and a whole stat will that let you get those stress mitigation cards for benefits.
Yeah, it also allows you to draw cards too, I believe.
Yep.
In the will stat. So all of the stats have different mechanical functions, as well as being like narratively, like your pilot has a lot of grit, your pilot has a lot of will, your pilot has a lot of system skills, your pilot has a lot of combat skills, right? Like the skills reflect into the cards that you get access to, and each card kind of aligns itself to the idea of a pilot has a lot of grit or will or whatever.
Yeah.
The stress also too, the amount of stress you have negatively impacts your hand size. So if your deck is like your pilot's, actually ripping straight from Magic the Gathering because the OG card game wins, like your deck is like your library of spells or whatever, right? So in our game, the deck is your pilot's knowledge and skills, right? And your hand is like your mind. It's like the thoughts of the actions that they can take at the moment. So if you're really stressed out, you don't think very clearly, so your hand size gets decreased, right? So there's tons of different like weapons or systems or other cards or maneuvers that other pilots can use, or the NPCs that can lower your hand size. Therefore, your options that you have are limited unless you have a strong will, and then you have lots of options, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that feels good because I remember I was playing the Ibuto, and there's an action in the game that is called when you move, you can overboost, so you can discard a card to gain 1 stress and move 2 extra spaces. And I was just like overboosting everywhere. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna overboost this enemy and hit them. And I ended up having like 4 or 5 stress. So every time I drew a card, I had to use it, or it just gets discarded. And I started to feel like kind of wimpy. I'm like, yeah, I have these basic actions. I was like, fuck, my pilot's too stressed out, and I got stressed out. I was like, fuck, like this sucks. Like I need to lower my stress.
Wait, you're telling me the game is real? The game is real life? Yeah, because like you have to use all the cards. You can't hold them all. You can't like plan ahead because you're literally moving too fast. Like
Yeah, it's like it felt good. I think it was a fun, interesting film.
Yeah, that's good. It worked. It worked, definitely.
It
This
did
game
work.
works. This game works.
It does work.
Hey there, folks. Calvin from The Edit here. This was another long conversation, so once again, we've decided to split this episode into 2. So next week, come on back to hear the rest of this conversation about Mechanized Body, this card-based mech TTRPG. We get into more conversations about design and gameplay and all that fun stuff, so I really hope y'all come back around. Of course, if you want to check out the game for yourself, it'll be linked below, so check out the playtest document as well as the playtest adventure. The document's got a lot of cool lore stuff in there, so definitely give that a read through because I think it's very interesting. In addition, Ramon is also working on an RPG called Versus, which is a fighting game inspired RPG. There's a link to that playtest document as well on our website, and that'll also be linked below. And you can check it out on winwithdice.ca. I also want to give some shout outs to other channels. Check out Vault Companions. They've recently started playing a BioShock game, so go there, go ahead and check it out. And also shout out to Untold Stories Project, where I'm at a couple of times a week. They're playing through a couple of Mutants and Masterminds campaigns right now, so go give them a listen, go follow both of them on Twitch and YouTube and everything else. As well, I want to shout out all the Lancer RPG writers and creators who are linked below. Check out all their work if you're into the Lancer RPG. Be sure to check out Eld Soar RPG as well. And we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up for this month and in the near future. But for now, this is the end of the episode. It'll continue next week, so for all of our GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.